And what we're looking for is whether or not these two candidates are interested in debating policy, or are they interested in a PT Barnum and Bailey type show? Why is it that we as consumers, and we were talking about the difference between a publicly funded, which Trent Franks hates, a publicly funded debate versus a privately funded debate, in this case CNN, who's putting it on. And is there we mentioned the difference in putting the debate on, but as far as the consumer goes, do we approach things any differently? And why is it that we are so interested? If people are going to talk about who won that debate, and it's not going to be about who came up with the best policy ideas, is it?
No, because that's the best part of everything that we do, whether it's, you talk about the horse race. We always do this. That's why someone like Mike Noble, who was on earlier this afternoon, we want to know what the polling data says, even if we don't trust polls at all anymore, because what's plus or minus 4%, or did someone actually pick up the phone to listen to you? It's absolutely about what is the most entertaining, partly because people have things to do with their lives and they don't have time to look over policy papers, and they don't really care either way. But for the most part, it's because if you're going to watch TV for an hour and a half, why not be entertained? Do you think Donald Trump would have won the 2016 Republican nomination, let alone the presidency, if he hadn't made those debates entertaining? The insults were ridiculous, but he was firing off. Hey man, I'm the TV star. I was in Home Alone 2 in addition to The Apprentice. I've got all this stuff going. It was entertaining. I can say honestly, I was not hoping he was going to be president, but I thought I would much rather watch this guy speak than Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, anybody else, because he's charismatic. He's entertaining. He's keeping my attention.
Isn't this how we sometimes tend to find ourselves watching any television program, scripted, unscripted, reality TV, whatever? Sometimes we even root for the anti-hero because they're just fun to watch. Like, the guy who doesn't want to have to save everybody but has to do it, right? And we go, we're kind of rooting for that guy, even though he'd just as soon not save everybody.
Yeah, well, you were a child actor, and, I had some theater experience. Don't the actors always want to play the one who is either the wacky sidekick who gets to get the funny lines or the one who gets to play the villain? I mean, yes, Bruce Willis in Die Hard, for example, was great. But who really ran away with that movie?
It was the villain. It was
totally.
Hans, right? Rickman, I was coming up with the actor's name,
so that's, to me, that's the key thing. That we just want, especially in these days of where things cost too much, there are all these wars all over the place. It's like what? Can I just sit back and be entertained? Do I have to actually look at this policy paper and find out exactly how many people are going to get asylum at the border? Come on.
That's interesting. So that's really great. I hadn't considered that, because I considered the TV, the reality show, all this stuff. But it is going on in the evening. And on the East Coast, it's 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. How many people are already unplugged, right? In other words, I just don't fill my brain with any more stuff, right? Just let me veg until I fall asleep. And now all of a sudden you're asking me to do homework at 9 p.m. And out here 6 p.m. Nobody wants to do homework.
After maybe helping their kids do homework. Like
right.
Real homework. Yeah, it's like, I've got to go, wait a second. This is television.
Yeah.
I want to just sit and be either passive, get a laugh out of it. If Trump gets off a couple of good insults, maybe look around and make sure no one saw you laughing and then laugh at it,
Sure, yeah. I know how you work, yeah. I was thinking about that, too, that we've got these policy issues. In many cases, either the policy issues are policy issues that we've dealt with for decades and we don't think that they're actually going to be solved. The border, the economy, that's going to go up and down and be broken and fixed 1,000 times in the rest of our lifetimes. But I also thought about this, too. A lot of these issues, because we've become such a split country, we've already solved that problem. Me and the guys down at the bar did it, right? Cafes, bars, lunchrooms, TV sets, the round tables on Fox or MSNBC or even CNN.
Yeah.
And I feel like oftentimes we've already made up our minds on the policy issues. I don't have to do the homework because they already gave me the cheat sheet.
Absolutely.
So maybe you don't teach me, we don't have to review the lesson. I already have the answers to this test result right here, and that is we're going to build a wall. That's the only way we can fix it, right?
Yeah, because the guy who said it is a better speaker than the guy who doesn't want to have it.
Great point.
Right? So he's convincing me of something. He's a salesman. And Chris, in the same vein, I often think when candidates love to do the ones that actually mention the budget deficit, and how many do that anymore? Very few. But it's, you know what? How hard is it to balance a budget? You watch in there, you do it every day. No, most people don't. Actually, they don't. Most people are deeply in debt. So the idea,
That's true.
right? So the idea that, come on, I know you sit around the kitchen table, you're figuring out your monthly budget. No, I bet you, the candidate saying that, you didn't do that either unless you're incredibly wealthy. So
yeah. And the other thing, if you're incredibly wealthy, it's a great point, Steve, because sometimes we do create these false equivocations as we try to analogize. Is that a word?
Yeah, that's a good public radio word.
I like it.
Yeah.
So as we try to say, imagine you're coming up with your own family budget, there is a restriction that the government has, and that is that they can't take in too much. I was listening to Mike Broomhead this morning, too, and he was talking about if you have to pay down debt, what do? You cut expenses or you get a second job. The government can't get a second job. They can raise taxes or they can cut expenses, right, or some combination of the two, right? That's what they can do. So, yeah, I think it is a false equivocation because someone that is not working out their budget is because they have money in the bank. But if we all of a sudden say, listen, we're operating with a budget surplus, what's the first thing that you and I say? Well, cut taxes. Quit taking our money away then, right?
Give me more. Absolutely, yeah.
And we see this happen. We saw this happen in Arizona with a budget surplus. And then all of a sudden, the next couple of years, we're short.
Over $1 billion, yeah.
Yeah, we're $1 billion short.
Yeah.
I saw this happen in California. One year, they were up almost $70 billion. The next year, they're short $200 billion, right? And why is that? Because once they hit $70 billion in California, they literally had to send checks back to people. It's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
So there's only so much you can put into a rainy day fund. So as we talk about some of those things, but God, if you and I sit here and talk about this, I can already hear radios turning off. Like, this is boring. Why are you even talking about that, right?
Yeah, except for to hear your voice.
Why don't you just tell me how stupid these guys are and how it's just easy to fix the budget? Why don't we just figure that out?
I know, but that's why the debate thing tonight is going to be sort of fascinating to watch. Is either of them going to actually try to make any policy points? Or is it just going to be the same old stuff and then veering away from the question that was asked? So
one of the other things I would say, too, is that when you are trying to win people over, you have to relate to them. And we'll see, they do this all the time. Mm-hmm. You've seen countless news articles that will start out by saying, Betty was a single mom who suddenly found herself without any job at all. Mm-hmm. She went to, and that's how it all starts.
Well, how many State of the Union addresses have those in there? I was talking to someone named Ray, and
exactly.
Ray and his family, yeah.
Yeah. Ray came back from Iraq, and there was nothing here for him, and that's why we've got to push through this bill. Of course, they try to relate.
Absolutely.
Who wins the contest of being relatable going in? Is it the billionaire or the lifelong politician? Which one best relates with us? Because most of us are neither.
No, neither one does in that sense, Chris, because think about how for such a long time, every president we had was from an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
It was like, well, how am I supposed to relate to that? I mean, there's no chance. So Biden will try to be more relatable. This is one of the things I find interesting about Trump's appeal, that he is someone who, because he's sort of seen as a non-religious way, a savior for some folks, and yet he hasn't had the same experiences that they've had. If you have someone in West Virginia, for example, who's struggling, has been ignored by the rest of the country, is resentful for a reason, but the idea that Trump, who was born with a silver spoon, is the one that's really interesting. And yet Biden should be able to relate to those folks more, but he doesn't.
Can't.
Yeah.
And I wonder what it is. And the only thing I can come up with, Steve, is that Trump echoes frustration. So that's where the relationship is.
Yeah.
The people of West Virginia who go to work in a coal mine so that they can get the coal for Trump to burn have never sat on a golden toilet. They've never ridden on a golden elevator. And they certainly have never married multiple models and cheated on them with porn stars. Completely unrelatable.
Yeah.
But they've had a desire to want to do all of those things. And he expresses the frustration that they're feeling better than anybody else. And I think that's where Biden, frankly, doesn't. In some ways, Trump makes the perfect mold for a conservative talk show host.
Perfect
really?
Description. Absolutely.
I mean, he really encapsulates the frustration many people are feeling, and he says, aren't you feeling this? And let me just kind of riff on this for a while. Doesn't it feel like sometimes you're listening to, like, this guy, you throw a microphone in front of him, I could see him pulling some decent ratings.
Well, remember last time around when he was getting angry with Fox News, he made, I'll just start my own network.
Yeah.
When he's hosting, the ratings are probably pretty good.
Yeah. You know who was bad at radio? Mike Pence. Ratings were never very good.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe, and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.